The Bistro is one of NCL's most premium specialty dining restaurants, and I ate there for the very first time on my recent trip with them. So if you're interested in my first impressions and my review, stay tuned. All that and more in today's video. You don't want to miss it. Welcome back to our next adventure with me, Jason. And yes, so we're going to be watching footage of my first impressions and first time eating at Le Bistro on NCL Prima. However, when all that is said and done, I'm going to be jumping back here to me in the present, where I'm going to actually give a, let's call it official review of Le Bistro on NCL. That way you have a scorecard to work with for the future. Whenever you're watching my reviews, everything is going to be benchmarked in the same way. So without further ado, let's see how it went. So about to head into Le Bistro, so that should be fun. Check it then. Bye. Le Bistro is located on Deck 7 on NCL Prima, and the cuisine is French. As they put on their website, romance is in the air at our signature French restaurant. Elegant interiors, crisp white linens, and attentive servers make this an intimate dining experience. By the end of your meal, you might just be proclaiming, "C'est magnifique." Well, let's see about that. But in all fairness, this is an impressively beautiful restaurant. Unfortunately, I think quite dimly lit. I would prefer if it were more lit up and bright, but I get that they're trying to set the mood. For my starter, I decided that whilst there was a lot that looked appetizing, I would settle for the French onion soup. And once again, whilst I was spoiled for choice as far as my main was concerned, I decided to go with the braised shank and roasted lamb chop because it just sounded delicious. I constantly found myself just looking around in awe, as it's an incredibly beautiful looking restaurant, and I really think as far as what they were going for, they hit it out the park. Bread service was a miniature baguette, but the French onion soup did arrive, so let's take it back to me from the past and see what I thought. Okay, well let's try the French onion soup. Bon appetit. That was actually a bit more of a salty bite. Thank you. So I just finished the French onion soup, and I've decided, well, I haven't finished it, there's still some of the broth that's better there, but my concluding remark is it actually is just too salty. Once you finish the crouton and the Gruyere, it's basically liquid salt, so unfortunately, but yeah, it's like just drinking salt, so yeah, I could be in the Dead Sea really. I could float if I could fit into this tiny little thing. I might be able to float. Well, whilst we were off to a rocky start, at least the main had arrived. So each component of the lamb is really good. The lamb itself, the medallion itself, the other part of it, and then also the I think squash. Really love it, button out or whatever. And then combined, they're great. So everything works really well. I'm still really stuck on whether I could recommend paying extra for all of this. I still don't think so. Because I just think the baseline food is good enough. It says a lot about the fact that you don't need to pay extra. And I actually think that's an unbelievable compliment to be able to give. But yeah, let's see what the dessert's like. I was craving a really good chocolate dessert, so I couldn't resist but to get the Marquis au Chocolat. Let's see how that went, shall we? Okay, so the Marquis au Chocolat just came. There seems to be a singular gold leaf, so that tells you it must be premium. So this is just the chocolate itself. Onion soup, Gruyere was fine. Offset the salt quite a lot actually, which is weird because cheese is quite high in sodium. The crouton, fine. Once those were gone, the actual rest of the soup was just like pure liquid salt. Lamb was fine, and the lamb was actually very nice, but portions so small. And I usually don't mind small portions when I'm having, you know, a 3-course meal. The dessert was great, but dessert is very inexpensive to make. It's easy to do a good dessert because it's the one time we're all okay if you just front load this with chocolate, or lots of sugar, or both. But no, I wouldn't pay extra. I mean, I think with what they're asking and what they're giving, no way. And again, I want to put that into context, that I really do think the complimentary food is good and it's consistent. To the point where I just don't see why I would want to come here. Sorry to interrupt, but just a small request from my side. If you haven't already, please consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel a lot and means so much to me. Not only that, if you enjoyed this video, found it useful, or you'd like to see more of it, please give it a thumbs up. And of course, I'd love it if you left a comment below. Tell me, did you find it useful, entertaining? Did you just enjoy it in general? What did you think? Have you eaten there before? I'd love to know, so please leave a comment below. Anyway, back to the rest of the video. And now it's time for the restaurant review of Le Bistro. So let's begin. The first part of this review will be looking at the meal scorecard that I put together. This scorecard is to evaluate the meal experience with respect to what is ordered and received as part of the dining experience as a whole. A 0 represents not achieved, a 0.5 partial achievement, and a 1 equals fully achieved. You'll see that the main categories we're looking at to the right of that are the starter, the main, the dessert, and specialty drinks. At the very bottom, you'll notice that the total score that is available for each respective category is 5 for starter, 5 for main, 5 for dessert, and 4 for specialty drink. Now, on the left side, you'll notice we have several considerations: quality, taste, portion, presentation, and price. I suggest that you pause at this moment and take a look so that you can see what it is we're looking at under each of those. For example, under quality, each ingredient or component seems to be of excellent quality. So take a look at that now before we continue. Alright, I'm now going to reveal one by one for each of the respective categories in question. For the starter, it scored a total of 0.5 out of 5, and the only reason it got something for presentation was that at least they put the French onion soup in a nice bowl. Other than that, it was inedible. The main scored a 2 out of 5, with the main issue really being that unfortunately it was incredibly small, the taste was good to okay, and the presentation was a mixture of poor and pretentious. Specialty drinks scored a whopping 0 out of 4, and yes, you heard that correctly, 0. That is because there was no specialty drinks menu. Instead, they just had these menus of entry-level champagne that they tried to upsell you on. Next, we have the implementation scorecard, which aims to evaluate the implementation of key elements to one's overall dining experience. You'll see that in this case, we are actually focusing on the leftmost headings. In other words, menu design, environment, service, and X factor. Once again, I advise you to pause here, familiarize yourself with what is being looked at each of them, and then I will go through it briefly. Under menu design, it scored for the starter, main, dessert, a 1 each, with specialty drinks getting 0 because, as I mentioned, there was no specialty drinks menu to speak of, getting a total of 3 out of 4. For the environment, for exterior, it scored a 0, interior a 1, spacing a 0.5, ambiance a 0.5, bringing it to a total of 2. Under service, it scored a charitable 1, for a total of 1 out of 2. And X factor a flat 0, as there was no X factor to be found. If we put the total of each of the different scorecards together and the various categories, you'll see that that brings us to a total for Le Bistro of 11.5 out of a possible 30. So let's close on some food for thought for Le Bistro. First thing I want to speak about is the overall score of 11.5 out of 30, or 38%. I found that Le Bistro's biggest failing is that it's priced at an exceptional premium for an added dining option, but delivers exceptionally substandard food and service for its price point. Keep in mind that you've already paid for some complimentary food every single evening that you go and eat. So the fact that you are now paying on top of that an extra amount to go and eat at a premium restaurant or specialty dining restaurant and get anything that substandard is horrific. The next thing is, of course, the meal score, where it achieved 5.5 out of 19, or 29%. The main offender here was the French onion soup, which is the exact same French onion soup that you will find all over the ship, including at the complimentary restaurants. The only difference here is they have the chutzpah to dress it up differently in a nice bowl. As for the main, it was exceptionally small. The presentation was a weird combination of poor and pretentious, with below expectation taste and quality given the price demanded. And then, of course, there was no effort in crafting a unique specialty drinks menu. Instead, they chose to rather try and upsell you on entry-level commercially available champagne. The third and final point I want to make is the implementation score of 6 out of 11, or 55%. The exterior blends into the standard ship design and has absolutely no presence. The interior, on the other hand, hits the bullseye. Personally, I would have preferred if they lit it up a bit more, but that's a personal preference. Service was charitably basic at best, certainly nothing special or becoming of a specialty dining restaurant at that kind of premium. The music was too soft and not in theme with the rest of the restaurant. And last but not least, spacing of the tables seemed to sacrifice some privacy over maximizing seating. I could barely hear myself think, let alone speak, when I was dining there, and the restaurant was not even 20% full. Well, that's my review on Le Bistro. I hope you found it useful or at least entertaining, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye.